At my sister's luxury wedding, I was forced to sit alone in the back. "Your poverty will embarrass us," my sister sneered. Suddenly, a man in an expensive suit sat beside me. "Act like you're with me." When my family saw us together, they went pale. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope so thick it felt like cardboard. My sister Vanessa's wedding was going to be the event of the season, at least according to the embossed gold lettering that spelled out the details. The Rosewood Estate, black tie required. No plus ones unless explicitly stated. Mine didn't include a plus one. I held that invitation for a long time, sitting in my cramped studio apartment with its leaking ceiling and temperamental radiator. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Vanessa had always landed on her feet ever since we were kids. She married rich the first time at 23, divorced richer at 26, and now at 31, she was marrying a tech executive whose net worth had more zeros than I wanted to count. Me. I was 28 and still trying to figure out how to make my freelance writing career cover rent without having to choose between groceries and electricity. We'd grown up in the same house, share the same parents, but somewhere along the way, our paths had diverged so dramatically that we might as well have been strangers. The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with group texts I was included in but never really part of. Vanessa's friends discussing their designer gowns, the bridesmaids comparing notes on their hair appointments at salons I couldn't afford to walk past. My mother chimed in occasionally, always with comments about how perfect everything was going to be, how this wedding would cement Vanessa's place in high society. I sent a simple message saying I was looking forward to it. Nobody responded. 3 days before the wedding, my phone rang. It was Vanessa, which surprised me because we hadn't actually spoken in months. "Stacy, we need to talk about seating arrangements," she said without preamble. "Okay," I replied, setting down the article I'd been editing. "You're going to be at table 17. It's in the back, near the kitchen. I need you to understand that this isn't personal, but Marcus and I have a certain image to maintain. His family is very prominent, and a lot of important people will be there. Business contacts, potential investors. You understand?" I didn't understand, but I said nothing. "Also, I need you to dress appropriately. Nothing too flashy, nothing that draws attention. Simple and understated. Can you do that for me? It's black tie. Vanessa, I'll wear a black dress." "Good. And Stacy, please don't mention your living situation to anyone. If people ask what you do, just say you're a writer and leave it at that. Don't elaborate. Your poverty will embarrass us." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, her words echoing in my head. Your poverty will embarrass us. Not your situation or your circumstances. Poverty, like I was some kind of Victorian street urchin who had wandered into their perfect lives by mistake. The dress I wore to the wedding cost $45 from a consignment store. It was simple, black, and fit well enough. I did my own hair and makeup, spending an hour trying to look presentable enough to exist in the same room as my sister without causing her shame. The Uber to the venue cost more than the dress, but I'd saved up for it. The Rosewood Estate was everything the invitation had promised. Manicured gardens, a fountain that looked like it belonged at Versailles, and a mansion that could have housed 50 families. Valleys and crisp uniforms took keys from guests arriving in cars that cost more than I'd make in 5 years. I walked from where my Uber dropped me off, clutching my small purse and trying not to feel like an imposter. Inside, the ballroom was transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, silk draping the walls. A string quartet played softly while guests mingled, champagne flutes in hand. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread. I found table 17, exactly where Vanessa said it would be. Back corner, partially hidden by a decorative screen, close enough to the kitchen that I could hear the staff coordinating. The table was empty. Every other table I could see had people gathering, greeting each other, laughing. Mine had 8 empty chairs and place cards with names I didn't recognize. I sat down, smoothing my dress and trying to look like I belonged somewhere, anywhere. The ceremony was beautiful. Vanessa looked stunning in a gown that probably cost more than my annual income. Marcus looked proud, his family looking on with approval. My mother cried delicate tears that didn't smudge her makeup. My father stood tall, chest puffed out like he'd personally orchestrated this union with the upper class. I watched from my seat and felt nothing but a hollow ache. The reception began with cocktails. I stayed at my table watching people mingle. Occasionally, someone would glance my way, see me sitting alone, and quickly look away. I was the odd piece that didn't fit the puzzle. My mother found me about 30 minutes in. "Stacy, why are you sitting here alone? Go mingle, meet people. This is my assigned seat, Mom." She waved her hand dismissively. "Well, you could at least try to look like you're having fun. People will think something's wrong. And for God's sake, smile. You look miserable." She left before I could point out that I was sitting alone at a table in the back corner while everyone else enjoyed the party. How exactly was I supposed to mingle? The dinner service began. Slowly, painfully, slowly, people filtered to my table. 3 middle-aged couples I'd never met, clearly friends of Marcus's parents. They nodded politely at me, introduced themselves, and then spent the entire meal talking amongst themselves about country clubs and vacation homes in Aspen. I might as well have been invisible. Between courses, I watched my family at the head table. Vanessa held court like a queen, laughing and touching Marcus's arm affectionately. My parents flanked them, basking in reflected glory. They looked happy. They looked like they belonged in this world of wealth and privilege. I wondered when I became the family embarrassment they had to hide. "Is this seat taken?" The voice startled me out of my thoughts. I looked up to find a man standing beside the empty chair next to mine. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a suit that I could tell even with my limited fashion knowledge was expensive, the kind of expensive where you can't even see a price tag because if you have to ask, you can't afford it. His dark hair was styled perfectly. His watch caught the light, and his shoes probably cost more than my entire outfit, including the Uber. "Oh no," I said, confused. "I mean, there's a place card, but nobody's sitting there." He glanced at the card, then picked it up and slipped it into his pocket. "Mind if I join you?" Before I could answer, he sat down, angling his chair slightly toward me. He had an easy confidence about him, the kind that came from never having to worry about whether you belonged somewhere. "I'm Daniel," he said, extending his hand. "Stacy." I shook his hand, bewildered. "Are you sure you're supposed to be at this table? I think there might be some mistake." "No mistake." He smiled, and it was warm, genuine. "I saw you sitting here alone and thought you could use some company. Plus, honestly, the conversation at my assigned table was putting me to sleep. Tech brothers talking about their latest app developments. I told them I needed to take a call and never went back. Pretty sure they didn't even notice." "So, you came to the reject table in the back?" He laughed. "Is that what this is? I thought it was the VIP section, private, away from the chaos." Despite myself, I smiled. That's one way to look at it. Daniel leaned in slightly, his voice dropping. "Okay, here's the truth. I noticed you earlier, sitting alone, and you look like the only interesting person in this entire overblown production. Everyone else is either networking or showing off. You're just here. I appreciate that." "I'm the bride's sister," I said, not sure why I felt the need to explain. His eyebrows rose. "Really? And they put you back here?" "It's complicated." "Isn't it always?" He gestured to the room. "Family dynamics are the worst. Trust me, I know." A waiter appeared with the next course, and Daniel ordered a bottle of wine for our end of the table. The older couples barely acknowledged us, too engrossed in their own conversations. It felt like Daniel and I were in our own bubble. "So," he said after the waiter left, "what's your story, Stacy? And please don't give me the sanitized version people use at events like this. Give me the real one." I hesitated. Vanessa's words echoed in my head. "Don't mention your living situation. Don't elaborate. Your poverty will embarrass us." But something about Daniel made me want to be honest. "I'm a freelance writer. I live in a studio apartment with a leaking ceiling. I took an Uber here because I don't have a car. I'm wearing a $45 dress from a consignment store. And my sister put me back here because my poverty might embarrass her in front of all these important people." The words stumbled out before I could stop them. I expected him to make an excuse and leave, or worse, give me that pitying look people do when they realize you're struggling. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Your sister sounds like a piece of work." I laughed, surprised. "That's one way to put it." "And you're a writer? What do you write about?" We talked through the rest of dinner, really talked. Daniel was easy to talk to, asking questions that seemed genuinely interested in the answers. He told me he worked in private equity, which I barely understood, but he made it sound less intimidating than I'd imagined. He'd grown up middle class, worked his way through business school, and admitted that events like this still sometimes made him uncomfortable despite his success. "There's a difference between having money and being born into it," he explained. People who've never struggled don't understand that the world isn't a level playing field. They think everyone has the same opportunities they did. You get it, I said softly. I do. The music shifted, signaling the first dance. Everyone's attention turned to Vanessa and Marcus on the dance floor. They moved together gracefully, the picture of a perfect couple. The photographer circled them, capturing every angle. I saw my mother glance toward my table. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Daniel sitting next to me. She nudged my father, who looked over and frowned. They exchanged words too far away for me to hear, but I could see the confusion on their faces. Your family is staring at us, Daniel observed. They don't know who you are. He smiled, slow and deliberate. Want to have some fun? What do you mean? Act like you're with me, like we're together. Let them wonder. I should have said no. I should have told him it was childish and wouldn't accomplish anything. But the petty part of me, the part that had been wounded by Vanessa's words and my family's dismissal, wanted to see what would happen. Okay, I agreed. Daniel shifted his chair closer to mine, his arm resting casually on the back of my chair. When he spoke, he leaned in close, his attention focused entirely on me, like I was the only person in the room. To anyone watching, we looked intimate, familiar. The effect was immediate. My mother's face went from confused to shocked. My father's frown deepened. At the head table, Vanessa had turned to look, her smile frozen in place. Marcus leaned over to ask her something, and I saw her shake her head, her eyes never leaving Daniel and me. They're definitely paying attention now, Daniel murmured. This is crazy, I said, but I was smiling. Sometimes crazy is fun. The dancing began in earnest, couples taking to the floor. Daniel stood and offered me his hand. Dance with me. My heart hammered. I'm not a great dancer. Neither am I. We'll figure it out. He led me to the dance floor, away from the dark corner where I'd been hidden all evening. Under the chandeliers with everyone watching, he pulled me into a proper dance hold. His hand was warm on my back, and I tried to follow his lead without stepping on his expensive shoes. Relax, he said quietly. Just follow me. I've got you. We moved together, and somehow it worked. I wasn't graceful, but with Daniel leading, I didn't need to be. He made it easy. I could feel eyes on us, my family, Vanessa's friends, the important business contacts, everyone trying to figure out who this man was and why he was with the sister who had been relegated to the back. Your sister is staring daggers at you, Daniel said, amusement in his voice. She's probably trying to figure out if she knows you. Want to really blow their minds? How? He spun me out and back in, a move that was probably simple for him, but felt dramatic and romantic. When he pulled me back, he was grinning. Trust me, he said. I don't even know you. That's not a no. He was right. It wasn't. Another song began, slower, more intimate. Daniel adjusted his hold, and we swayed together while the world blurred around us. I caught glimpses of faces as we turned, my father frowning in concentration as he tried to place Daniel, one of Vanessa's bridesmaids, whispering to another while staring at us. Marcus's business partner looking impressed. The attention should have made me uncomfortable, but with Daniel's steady presence, I felt protected somehow. You know what the best part of this is? Daniel murmured near my ear. What? Watching your sister trying to figure out if she should be happy you're not alone, or furious that you're stealing her thunder. I glanced toward the head table. Vanessa was indeed watching us, her expression unreadable. Marcus was saying something to her, but she wasn't listening. Her eyes tracked our movement across the floor with laser focus. I think she's going with furious, I observed. Good. She deserves to squirm a little after what she said to you. The song ended, and before we could leave the dance floor, my mother appeared, her smile tight and forced. Stacy, darling, why don't you introduce me to your friend? Mom, this is Daniel. Daniel, my mother, Patricia. Lovely to meet you, Mrs. Henderson, Daniel said smoothly, shaking her hand. His manners were impeccable, his tone respectful, but not obsequious. Are you a friend of Stacy's? My mother's eyes scanned him, taking in every detail of his expensive suit and watch. I am now, Daniel replied. We met here tonight, actually. I have to say, you raised a fascinating daughter. She's been telling me about her writing career. Very impressive. My mother blinked, clearly thrown. Oh, yes, Stacy's writing. How do you know Marcus and Vanessa? Business circles, Daniel said vaguely. You know how it is. Everyone knows everyone eventually. It wasn't technically a lie, but it also didn't answer her question. My mother nodded like she understood, though I could see she was filing this information away to investigate later. Vanessa appeared at my mother's elbow, Marcus trailing behind her. Up close, her wedding makeup was flawless, her dress stunning. She looked like a princess from a storybook, but her eyes, when she looked at me, were cold. Stacy, I see you've made a friend. Vanessa said, her voice honey-sweet and fake. Vanessa, congratulations. Beautiful ceremony, Daniel said before I could respond. You must be so happy. I am, thank you. She turned those cold eyes on him. I don't believe we've met. I thought I knew all of Marcus's business associates. Different circles, Daniel said easily. I'm more on the investment side of things. Your husband's company has been making waves. Impressive growth trajectory. Marcus perked up at that, launching into a discussion about his company's latest funding round. Daniel engaged with him knowledgeably, asking questions that made Marcus expand and explain. I stood there watching this man I'd just met hold his own in a conversation with my brother-in-law, all while my sister and mother tried to figure out what was happening. How do you two know each other? Vanessa asked when there was a break in the conversation, gesturing between Daniel and me. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks now, Daniel said smoothly, his hand finding the small of my back. Stacy's been keeping me a secret. I think she wanted to see if I'd stick around. My breath caught. He had just elevated this from acting like we were together to outright lying, but his hand on my back was steady, reassuring, and when I glanced up at him, he gave me the smallest wink. Play along, his expression said. Really? Vanessa's voice went up an octave. Stacy, you didn't mention you were seeing anyone. It's new, I managed to say. I wanted to keep it private. How did you two meet? My mother asked, her investigative instincts kicking in. Coffee shop, Daniel said. Classic story. She was writing, completely in her own world. I asked if I could share her table, and we started talking. I was hooked immediately. He was good at this. Too good. The story sounded plausible, sweet even. Vanessa's expression had shifted from cold to calculating. I could see her trying to figure out how this changed things, how my suddenly having a wealthy boyfriend affected her perfect day. Well, this is unexpected, she said finally. I wish you'd told me, Stacy. I would have made sure you had better seats. The seats were fine, Daniel said. Gave us a chance to talk without interruptions. Plus, the view from back there is actually quite good. You can see everything. Still, family should sit with family, my mother interjected, already trying to rewrite history. It's not a big deal, Mom, I said, finding my voice. Really? More guests were approaching to congratulate Vanessa, and she was forced to turn her attention to them. But she kept glancing back at Daniel and me, like we were a puzzle she couldn't solve. My father found us next, introducing himself with a firm handshake, and the slightly aggressive friendliness he used when sizing up men. Daniel handled it perfectly, answering questions about his work without being boastful, showing respect without being deferential. What kind of investment firm? My father asked. Private equity. We focus primarily on tech startups and sustainable energy companies. My father's eyes lit up. Money talked, and Daniel was speaking his language. Must be doing well given the market right now. We've been fortunate, Daniel replied. Right place, right time, and a good team. They talked for several minutes while I stood there, feeling like a spectator in my own life. When my father finally excused himself, Daniel turned to me with a grin. Your father's intense. He likes you. That's his version of friendly. Good to know. He glanced around the ballroom. Want to get some air? It's getting stuffy in here. We slipped out to the terrace, leaving the noise and spectacle behind. The night air was cool, and I could finally breathe properly. The garden stretched out before us, lit with carefully placed lights that made everything look magical. Thank you, I said quietly, for doing this. You didn't have to. Daniel leaned against the railing, looking out at the gardens. Can I tell you something? I came to this wedding as a favor to a business associate. I didn't know anyone, and I was dreading the whole thing. Sitting at my assigned table, listening to tech brothers compare their Tesla models, was my idea of hell. Then I saw you sitting alone, looking like you wanted to be anywhere else, and I thought, there's someone who gets it. Gets what? That all of this, he gestured back toward the ballroom, is performance. Everyone playing roles, trying to impress each other. You weren't playing. You were just existing, and that was refreshing. Or maybe I just don't know how to play the game. Maybe that's better. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Music drifted from inside, along with laughter and conversation. I should probably confess something, Daniel said. When I said we should act like we're together, I wasn't entirely selfless. I've been watching your family's reactions, and it's honestly entertaining. I laughed. It's petty. Sometimes petty feels good. It really does. He turned to face me fully. For what it's worth, your sister is an idiot. Putting you in the back, telling you not to embarrass her, that says everything about her and nothing about you. You barely know me. I know enough. You're genuine, you're smart, and you're not afraid to be honest about your life. That's rare in my world. Most people I meet are so busy projecting success that they forget to be real. I can't afford to project success, I said, smiling faintly. Really, my bank account won't let me. Success isn't about money. It's about doing something that matters to you. You're a writer. That's hard. And it's brave. How many people give up on their dreams because it's easier to take a safe job? His words settled into something soft in my chest. Nobody in my family had ever said anything like that to me. To them, my writing was a hobby I needed to grow out of, a phase before I got a real job. Thank you, I said, my voice catching slightly. Don't thank me for telling the truth. The breeze picked up, carrying the scent of the roses from the garden. Inside, someone clinked a glass, and laughter erupted from the reception. Out here, it felt peaceful, separate from all the performance and pretense. Can I ask you something? I ventured. Anything. Why are you really doing this? The truth, not the entertaining reactions or the escape from boring conversation. What made you decide to spend your entire evening with a stranger? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant lights of the city skyline beyond the estate grounds. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. About 6 months ago, I went to a charity gala. Big event. Everyone important was there. I was at the height of closing a major deal, feeling successful, accomplished, and this woman came up to me. Beautiful, sophisticated, said all the right things. We dated for 3 months. He exhaled. Then I overheard her on the phone telling her friend that she was only with me because of my connections and my money. Said I was boring but useful. Daniel, I'm sorry. He shook his head. Don't be. It taught me something valuable. Most people in my world are transactional. Everything's about what you can do for them, how you can advance their position. When I saw you tonight, sitting alone, not working the room or trying to leverage connections, it reminded me that authentic people still exist. You weren't putting on a show. You were just being hurt and honest about it. So I'm your antidote to fake people? Maybe. Or maybe I just recognize someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated. The vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. This successful man in his expensive suit had his own wounds, his own reasons for needing tonight to be something real, even if it started as pretend. Thank you for trusting me with that, I said quietly. Thank you for being trustworthy. We went back inside eventually. The party was in full swing. People dancing, drinking, celebrating, but something had shifted. When I walked through the ballroom with Daniel at my side, people looked at me differently. My family looked at me differently. Vanessa found me again near the end of the reception, her makeup slightly smudged now, her perfect composure slipping. We need to talk, she said, pulling me away from Daniel toward a quiet alcove. What's wrong? What's wrong, Stacy? You show up here in some cheap dress. I put you in the back so you won't be noticed. And then you mysteriously have this wealthy boyfriend who everyone's talking about. What are you trying to do? I'm not trying to do anything, Vanessa. You're the one who hid me in the back because you were ashamed of me. I wasn't ashamed. I was being practical. You don't understand the kind of pressure I'm under. The expectations Marcus's family has. This wedding had to be perfect, and you would have ruined it. She looked away. You don't fit in this world, Stacy. You never have. I was trying to protect you from feeling out of place? By making sure I was out of place? By telling me my poverty would embarrass you? I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? She didn't have an answer. Or maybe she did, but she couldn't say it out loud. The truth was that Vanessa had always seen me as less than, as the sister who didn't measure up. And tonight, when I'd shown up with someone who made her question that narrative, it had thrown her entire worldview off balance. Is he real? She asked finally. Daniel, are you really together, or is this some kind of game? I could have told her the truth, that Daniel and I had met tonight, that we'd manufactured this entire thing to mess with her. But looking at her face, seeing the genuine confusion and frustration, I realized something. It didn't matter. Whether Daniel and I were real or fake, whether we stayed in touch after tonight or never spoke again, the point had been made. I wasn't the embarrassment she'd tried to hide. I was worthy of respect and attention regardless of my bank account. Does it matter? I asked. Of course it matters. You're my sister. Am I? Because it hasn't felt like it. Not tonight. Not for a long time. Vanessa's eyes glistened with tears, though I wasn't sure if they were genuine or performative. She'd always been good at crying when it suited her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry if I made you feel bad. This wedding, everything, it's been so stressful. I just wanted everything to be perfect. It was perfect, Vanessa. You got your fairy tale. Congratulations. I left her standing there and went back to Daniel. He was chatting with Marcus, but he looked relieved when I appeared. "Ready to go?" he asked. "More than ready." We said our goodbyes, Daniel collecting business cards from several people who wanted to continue the conversation about investment opportunities. My parents hugged me goodbye, my mother holding on a bit longer than usual, whispering, "Bring him to dinner soon. We'd love to get to know him better." I promised nothing. Outside, Daniel's car turned out to be a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than I'd make in a decade. He opened the door for me, and I slid into leather seats that felt like butter. "I can call an Uber," I said. "You don't have to drive me home." "Stacy, I'm not going to let you Uber home at midnight. What kind of fake boyfriend would I be?" I laughed, some of the tension leaving my shoulders. A pretty terrible one, I guess. He drove through the dark streets, the city lights blurring past. I gave him my address, and if he had any thoughts about my neighborhood or the building with its chipped paint and broken security lock, he didn't show it. When we pulled up outside, he put the car in park and turned to face me. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "I know I kind of ambushed you with the whole fake relationship thing, but you played along perfectly. Your family's faces were priceless. Thank you for doing it. You didn't have to be nice to me or sit with me or any of it, but you did, and it meant more than you probably know." "Maybe we could do it again sometime," he said, without the fake relationship part, just as two people who get coffee and talk. My heart skipped. "Really?" "Really." He pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number?" I gave it to him, watching as he saved it. This man, this successful, charming man who had just spent hours pretending to be my boyfriend to mess with my family, wanted to see me again. "I'll text you," he promised. "And Stacy, don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. You're worth more than they see." I got out of the car feeling lighter than I had in months. As I climbed the stairs to my studio apartment with its leaking ceiling and temperamental radiator, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt proud. My phone buzzed as I unlocked my door. A text from an unknown number. "Made it home safely. Daniel." I smiled and typed back, "Safe and sound. Thank you again for everything." His response came quickly. "Coffee this week. For real this time." I'd like that. I fell asleep that night thinking about everything that had happened, the wedding, my sister's cruelty, my family's shock, and Daniel's unexpected kindness. But mostly, I thought about the fact that, for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. 3 days later, Daniel texted me an address for a coffee shop. I showed up nervous, half expecting him not to be there, for this to have all been some elaborate joke. But he was there, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees already ordered. He smiled when he saw me, and it was the same genuine smile from the wedding. "Hi," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hi yourself." He pushed one of the coffees toward me. "I got you a latte. Hope that's okay." "It's perfect." We talked for 3 hours, about writing, about his work, about our families and our childhoods. He told me about growing up with parents who'd struggled to make ends meet, about working 2 jobs through college, about the guilt that sometimes came with success when you remembered where you came from. I told him about Vanessa, about always feeling like the lesser sister, about the day I decided to pursue writing even though it meant financial instability. "You're brave," he said, "braver than you give yourself credit for." "I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm barely holding on most days." That's what brave is, holding on when it would be easier to let go. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into a walk through the park. By the time he dropped me off at my apartment again, the sun was setting. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Yes." Over the following weeks, we fell into a pattern. Coffee dates, dinners at places I couldn't afford, but he insisted on paying for, long walks where we talked about everything and nothing. It stopped feeling like gratitude for what he'd done at the wedding and started feeling like something real. My mother called regularly now, suddenly interested in my life, asking about Daniel, dropping hints about family dinners. I ignored most of them. Vanessa called once, 3 weeks after the wedding. She was back from her honeymoon, and she wanted to talk. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began. "About not feeling like my sister. You were right. I've been awful to you, and I'm sorry." "Okay," I said, unsure where this was going. "I was jealous, Mayu," she admitted. "Of you. You're out there doing what you love, even though it's hard. You're not afraid to be yourself. I spent so much time trying to fit into Marcus's world, trying to be perfect, that I forgot how to be real. And when I saw you at the wedding with Daniel, looking happy and genuine, I realized I've been playing a role for so long, I don't know who I am anymore." It was the most honest she'd been with me in years. I don't know what to say, I admitted. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that I see you now, really see you. And I'm proud of you, Stacy. I should have said that a long time ago. We didn't magically become close after that conversation. Years of distance and hurt didn't evaporate overnight, but it was a start. 6 months after the wedding, Daniel and I were still together. It had stopped being fake the moment he'd asked for my number, though neither of us had said it out loud until one night when he admitted, I knew at the wedding. When you told me the truth about your life, when you didn't pretend to be something you weren't, I knew I wanted to know you better. Even though I was wearing a $40 dress? Especially because of that. It meant you were real. My studio apartment wasn't leaking anymore. Daniel had insisted on paying for repairs when he'd seen the water damage, and while I'd protested at first, I eventually accepted. Not because I needed rescuing, but because letting people help you isn't weakness. My landlord had been shocked when a professional crew showed up with a check already written. The ceiling was fixed, the walls repainted, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't have to strategically place buckets when it rained. The repair crew had found other issues too. Faulty wiring, a window frame that needed replacing, pipes that were on the verge of bursting. Daniel had handled it all, and when I tried to argue about the cost, he'd simply said, let me do this. Not because you need saving, but because I care about you. And I can help. There's a difference. He was right. There was a difference. My writing career had picked up too. With Daniel's encouragement, I'd started pitching to bigger publications, believing I had something worth saying. I'd landed 3 major assignments, and my bank account finally had a buffer instead of constantly hovering near zero. I was still struggling sometimes. Success didn't happen overnight, and I had moments of doubt. But I wasn't alone anymore. Vanessa and I had coffee occasionally. She was in therapy, working through her own issues with perfectionism and self-worth. Marcus was supportive, which surprised me. Maybe he wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe I judged him based on Vanessa's treatment of me, rather than who he actually was. My parents were trying too. They still didn't fully understand my choices, but they'd stopped pressuring me to get a real job. Having Daniel in my life had somehow validated my existence to them, which bothered me, but I chose not to dwell on it. One evening, Daniel and I were at his apartment, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. We were cooking dinner together, something we'd started doing regularly. He was telling me about a difficult negotiation at work when he stopped mid-sentence. I need to tell you something, he said. My heart dropped. Okay? That night at the wedding, when I sat down next to you, it wasn't entirely random. I'd been watching you for a while, and I couldn't figure you out. Everyone else was networking, socializing, performing. You were just sitting there, looking lost and sad and beautiful. I wanted to know your story, so it wasn't entirely chivalrous. It was about 70% wanting to mess with your sister and 30% being attracted to you, he admitted with a grin. Only 30%? Okay, maybe 50-50, but the point is, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I sat down at that table, because finding you was the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. He kissed me then, and I kissed him back, thinking about how strange life was, how one night, one decision to play along with a stranger's scheme had changed everything. My sister's wedding had been designed to showcase her perfect life. She tried to hide me, to minimize my presence because I didn't fit her narrative. But in trying to hide me, she'd inadvertently given me the greatest gift. She'd put me in a position to meet someone who saw my worth exactly as I was. The irony wasn't lost on me. Late that night, lying next to Daniel in his expensive bed with its high thread count sheets, I thought about that cream-colored invitation and how nervous I'd been to attend. I thought about sitting alone at table 17, feeling invisible and unwanted. What are you thinking about? Daniel asked sleepily. That sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Deep thoughts for midnight. I'm a writer. Deep thoughts are my specialty. He laughed and pulled me closer. That they are. I never thanked Vanessa for putting me in the back of her wedding reception. I never told her that her cruelty had accidentally given me something wonderful. Some things didn't need to be said. But sometimes when my phone rang and I saw her name, I'd smile and think about how life had a funny way of working out. She tried to hide me away, and instead she put me exactly where I needed to be.